Hello everyone, this is Kerri Keffeler and welcome to the second half of my River Rock bead tutorial. This is part 2 where I'll be creating a feather on the surface of the bead. Today's tools are a bent steel rake, a flat razor tool, and Black Intense Stringer by Tapestry. If you've done the first half of this tutorial, you should have a base bead similar to this. I absolutely love creating this design and it's a beautiful backdrop for many different surface applications. Today I'm doing the feather because I love the contrast of the black against this background. I'm starting off with the Black Intense Stringer and pulling a very fine stringer off of the end of the stringer that I have. And this is going to give me my starting point for the shape of my feather. If you don't like intense black stringer, you're welcome to use any kind of black that you like. I know that there are several varieties out there and everyone has a preference. This is just my particular preference. Now this isn't a straight feather, it's got a slight curve. So I wanted to give the center spine of the feather outline first, and then start building up shapes on either side. Feathers, when they're found in nature, especially if you pick them up off the beach or wherever you are walking, you may find that they're a little roughed up. They're not usually perfectly smooth. They often have gaps in between the sections, and I like to actually include that in my design. To me, it looks a little more natural, a little more windswept, let's say. So in order to get this effect, rather than doing a solid heavy shape, I'm doing dots, basically, swipes of glass on either side, alternating on either side of that center line. It's important to also remember to heat the back of your bead. You're going to see me flip the bead back and forth quite a lot, and that's so that I don't forget to heat the back. It's very easy to get so caught up in your surface design on the one side of the bead that you actually forget that you need to keep the back hot as well. If you don't have even heat throughout your bead, it will crack and you're going to lose your beautiful creation. So please make sure to heat the back. I'm still adding quite a bit of heat to my design, but then, as you'll see, I touch it with my handheld marver. The reason for that is twofold. I want to slightly chill it so it doesn't melt completely flat, and I want to be able to stabilize that surface area. That allows me to come in with my tools and continually add detail without losing that shape by having it melt directly flat into the bead. You're going to see me use the very corner edge of my razor tool quite a bit. Be sure to keep it a little bit above the flame. I dip the bead into the flame and then just touch it very gently with the razor tool. You shouldn't have to force it. If you're really having to press hard, it means you don't have enough heat on the surface of your bead. Be sure to cool your tools in water quite frequently as well, and that will help preserve the life of your tool, and it will also prevent it from sticking to your bead. Remember to heat the back and focus the heat on the area that you want to add a little more detail to. So you can do a variety of feather designs. It doesn't have to be a raven feather or a crow feather. I think an eagle feather or a hawk feather would look really striking on this particular background. Use your imagination, have some fun. You can make them in any color and shape that you like. I just really enjoy the black as a contrast to this particular design. This is still one of my favorite beads to create, and I've been making them a long time. I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am. Heating the back and coming in with that razor tool, just continually adding that little bit of detail. Some of you may prefer to use the razor tool over the rake. Both are really useful tools, and you'll see that I actually use them both interchangeably. I also will use the bent elbow of the rake to act as a mini marver, just to flatten certain sections of the feather. Make sure to heat the back. I'm going to remind you through this whole tutorial. Well, it's coming along nicely. I just need to balance it out a little bit more. So at this stage, I'm just coming in with my stringer and adding a couple of small sections to the side of the bead where it needs a little more volume. Giving that some heat and gently touching it with the marver. The marver will help keep it cool and keep the design from melting in flat. This will take a little practice. If you're not used to doing surface design, Don't get frustrated if it melts totally flat. Keep at it, keep trying. Use a bead as a practice bead and make a feather on either side. If one melts incompletely, just turn it over and make another one on the other side. And just have fun with it. But if you use that marver in between each step, it will really help to keep the design cool enough to keep it raised above the surface of the bead. I'm pulling another fine section of stringer off of the end of my rod. I just want to add another line down the center. I want to redefine the spine of this feather. The first time I drew the line was the guideline for the shape, and I built the sections of the feather around that. And now I want to further define that center spine and come over it again with a very fine stringer. You have a lot more control if you pull a fine stringer off of the end of a thicker stringer or a rod than if you just pull a stringer and have to hold it in your hand. They break very, very easily. So if you pull a really fine stringer off the end of a rod or a thick stringer, it gives you a lot of control and it really helps to keep them from breaking. Well, I'm just coming in and adding a little more detail. It's just about done. I think I'm pretty happy with the results. A little bit more. You can keep adding a little bit of volume as you need it, adding your little details. I like to add just those tiny little feathers at the very, very end, just to make it look a little more realistic. And the bent steel rake, that little bent portion, the elbow, is so perfect as a tiny little marver. Whenever you need to flatten just a tiny little dot before you pull it, use the bent steel rake, use the elbow. You can better see what you're doing when you use it that way than if you were just used your marver. So this feather is a little bit roughed up. It's windswept. It's been discovered on a beach somewhere. So it's not a perfect feather, and that's what I love about it. Just coming in with my tools and adding a little more detail. And don't worry if you lose some of the fuming of your bead as you're working it in a regular flame. You can always change your flame to a reduction flame at the end and get that color back that you may have lost. And you might also find, depending on the torch that you're using, that you end up with more color without even trying. It just depends on the type of flame that you have and the type of torch you're using. In this video, I'm using a Hellcat torch by Carlisle. It's a pretty powerful torch, and it gives beautiful results. I really love working with it. But you can do this bead with any torch, even a hothead. So as I'm coming in with my tools, I'm making sure that I keep them cool and I just touch them lightly to the feather just to add a little more detail. The tip was looking a little pointy, so I'm just going to round it out. Now, if it was melted totally flat in the bead, I would not be able to get any control over that final shape. Once it's melted totally flat, it's incredibly difficult to change it. But if you keep it slightly raised above the surface of the bead, you have so much more control, and you can keep altering your finished design. I just love using these tools. They're simple, they're inexpensive, and available almost anywhere. These were some of the tools that I started with when I got my first Lampworking kit so many years ago. I just assumed everybody else used the same tools as well, and was just very surprised to discover many years later that most people didn't even use these particular tools. So this may be a little bit foreign to you, but I do hope you'll give it a try. Try the other tools that you may have in your studio as well. I'm sure there's lots of other tools you could use to achieve a similar effect. Maybe you have another little knife tool or even a kitchen knife. Anything that'll help you get those little lines in there will work just fine. Just be sure to keep your tools nice and cool in the water in between touching them into the flame. Well, that center line needs a little bit more definition, so coming in there with that little bit of fine stringer again and smoothing it out with the marver just to keep it cool and very gently pressed into the bead. I still want to preserve that texture, and I want to make sure I keep the back nice and warm. Well, it looks like I'm just about done this bead. I want to show you the detail of the feather and show you the design on the back. It's lost a little bit of color, so I am going to go back in and give it a little bit of a bath and a reduction flame here in just a second. I've really enjoyed doing this tutorial for you. I hope you've enjoyed it as well and that you're going to give it a try. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. The more feedback I receive, the better videos I can create for you. I'm really enjoying them, and I hope you are too. So here we are, just giving that last little bit of love in the flame to get that color back. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss a single tutorial. I'll have a new one out every Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy torching!